Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout as we look at the latest from the press conferences ahead of the deadline for game week 37. My name is Joe and as ever I'm joined by Neale, Fantasy Football Scout's editor. Neale, welcome. How are you?
Not too bad, Joe. Yeah, not too bad. Sorry about the slight tardiness. Zoom decided to run an update just as I was logging on there, so nobody probably noticed because I'm not late anyway. Normally,
We're all up to date and Alan Partridge style. We're going to be up to date with all the latest team news too, as well. Welcome those joining us in the live chat: John, Jason, Rodrev, Sudeb, FPL Rank Chaser, Bill Bighead, Wendy, Freddie, Bill, and many more. Thanks so much for joining us early on. Let's hope we give you the team news that you require. There was one question in the live chat. In the team selection video I do with Tom, I always say that part of my plans for this season is to have a nice cup of tea at the end of game week 38. My tea of choice, he's suggested Yorkshire tea. I don't know. It'll just be whichever is the own supermarket brand tea. And it might even be decaf. That's how rock and roll I am.
this is very boring, James Milner.
I know. I'm getting into James Milner territory, from Partridge to Milner. Natasha, Paul, Linus, Bakewell Tart, and D-Raj have all joined us in the live chat as well as Niall. So thanks for joining us. Let's move on. First game is Fulham against Man City. This screams annoying leak-tastic fixture at 12:30 on a Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be around for this one, so they can leak away. What's the latest from the home side? This is the sort of there are no injuries derby. What's the latest from Fulham?
Very much so. Yeah. Unfortunately, Fulham have kind of spoiled that by getting Sasa Lukic injured. He's going to miss out with a small issue in his calf, but he should be back very, very soon. And Silva confirmed that everyone else was available, so we assume that means Harrison Reed is fit as well after he missed out last week.
Rightio. And Man City, what's the latest there? Lengthy injury list?
The shortest injury list in the Premier League. It doesn't even exist because there's nobody on it.
Wow.
Again, Pep saying today, everyone's fine.
Okay.
He was asked about the quality of the medical department and said, "What's up? How come you're not suffering injury like United and Chelsea and Newcastle are?" But he's full of praise for the medical staff. But usually when that happens, we get a couple of injuries.
Okay. Well. Yeah.
Karmic retribution for praising the medical staff.
It's all good. A lot of people already tripled up on Man City as well, but you can take your pick if you're not, because they're all fit. Okay, let's move on to Bournemouth against Brentford. What's the latest there?
Yeah, Bournemouth should have 3 players back. 1 from illness, that's Lloyd Kelly, and 2 from injury, Tavernier and Adams. Kirkes, this is the final game of his 3-match ban, and they've still got Fredericks, Sinistera, and Mepham out, as far as I'm aware.
Righty. Oh, okay. And Brentford as well. I mean, there's pretty much zero interest in these teams. Single game week, pretty sort of on the beach. Bournemouth, literally. Brentford, what is the latest there? Not that anyone cares.
Yeah, well, this is it. Yeah, I was thinking that to myself last night when I was writing the Brentford team. I was thinking, is anyone going to actually read this? This week. Well, I will tell you, in the off chance anyone is interested. Good news to report on Christopher Ayer and Matthias Jensen. Frank expects them both to be available. Ayer broke his nose, I think, last weekend, but he's going to play with a mask. And Matthias Jensen had a minor injury, and Frank said if it had been a playoff final or Champions League final, he would have played. They've still got 4 players out longer term. That's Rico Henry, Josh Da Silva, Ben Mee, and Aaron Hickey. Okay,
let's move on to another couple. Well, I say another couple of teams people don't care about. They do actually. I've seen Everton defenders in a lot of teams because Everton against Sheffield United. I'm personally not going to go there because I think Sheffield United are going to score in this one. But yeah, what's the latest for this? Go with the home side first. Everton, what's the latest there?
Yeah, I feel you might be right because Dyche is kind of he hasn't said he will change things, but he has said he's got options. This is the final game. It's a dead rubber. There's nothing at stake for any side, whether as there was last week for Luton. So I do think he might change 1 or 2 players. Hopefully not Pickford because I've got him on my bench. Boost. The only 3 injuries are the ones we knew about already. So Mikalenko and Patterson, they're out for the season. Now, what remains of it? And Delhi has been sidelined for the rest of the campaign.
Okay.
And he said most everybody else is in and around it. There might be certain changes, but we want to win the game.
Right, yeah, okay. And as for Sheffield United, obviously not much interest in their players to get in,
No.
but it could be of interest in could they cause a shock against Everton, those particularly invested in Everton defenders like yourself with Pickford. Yeah, what's the latest for Sheffield United?
Yeah, it could be a good afternoon for owners of Everton attackers if there's anybody out there with Calvert-Lewin or McNeil or someone like that. I mean, they were already terrible at the back, but they've lost two of the options in defence. So Mason Holgate can't feature because he's a loanee from Everton, so he's ineligible. While Ahmed Hodzic was sent off last week, so he's serves a one-match ban. So they really are short of centre halves. We didn't actually get any questions on team news this morning, opposed to Wilder. Jebison, who's been out all season, he got 45 minutes for the under-21s on Monday. But I think a lot of these, I think I mentioned last week, will be just preserved for next season. They're not going to risk anybody now. The likes of Egan and Davies, who've been back on the grass. There was a glimmer of hope for McBurney, who had been ruled out of the campaign. And then Wilder last week said that had a second opinion and he might feature on the final day. So he could possibly return. Still got Baldock, Lowe, Norrington Davies, and Basham injured as well.
The derby, the injuries derby is coming up next. Newcastle against Brighton. Assuming there's more injury news for Brighton.
It sure is.
And let's go with them first. Then what's the big news there for those wanting to invest in Brighton's double?
Yeah, and the player you would possibly be thinking about if you want to see a free hit or after a third forward is the one who's the concern. Is Joao Pedro. He suffered an ankle issue, I think, in training, and De Zerbi's unsure whether he'll be fit to face Newcastle. I will find the exact quote once I'm off this and see if it's online, but a doubt anyway.
Right. Okay.
They will get one player back potentially in the matchday squad, not from the start. That's Tariq Lamptey, who has been out for some time with an unknown issue.
Yes.
The rest of them, I haven't had any update on. So, I mean, Stupinan, Ferguson, Hinchelwood, March, and Mitoma are out for the season anyway.
Yep.
Milner's been out since January. Lallana was added last week to the injury list. Van Heck, we'd seen a report in the Dutch media suggesting he's out for the season, but that hasn't been confirmed yet by Brighton. But there was no suggestion that any of those are returned from De Zerbi.
No. There's well, out of all the defenders they've got, they'll either have three at the back, which will be a sort of Webster, Duncan, Igor, but they might go for two central defenders. So it'll be one, two of Dunk, Webster, Igor, and then Veltman, Barco, but Lamptey could come in as a fullback now. So I don't know. I can't see him starting. He could start the second game though, but he could take some minutes off one of the right or the left back, which he can play both there. But possibly good news for Newcastle defensive owners without Pedro. It does. Before we move on to Newcastle, I just want to say, if you want to go for a differential, Pascal Gross could be on penalties now.
Yeah,
and also he's good for game week 38 because he loves scoring against Manchester United. Meanwhile, Newcastle, lots of interest there. What's the latest there, particularly with their defenders?
Yeah, this is quite a lengthy update, so stay posted. Trippier, first and foremost, he's back in training this week. And Eddie Howe's going to make a late call on his inclusion. There was a lot of quotes on him this morning. Howe said he's getting closer. He's training this week for the first time, and he's desperate to be involved. He did say they'd have to be careful about the recurrence of a calf problem, but that was a reason for taking this long in the first place. There was another question on whether the performances of Hall and Livramento, who I think a few people are interested in, make it a tougher decision to bring Trippier back in. I think he's basically suggesting Trippier's still his first choice. He says when he's going to see where Kieran's at with his injury, with his fitness, and then you have to try and pick the best team to win the game. Okay. And that's what I'll do. So, he's trying to muscle his way back into the first 11. Fabian Schär, who had been ruled out for the rest of the season, effectively by Howe last week, is now a 25% flag, and that was based on this morning's update, where he said, "I don't think he'll figure tomorrow, and then let's see about next week." He's certainly improving and feeling good. Now, that tallies with what Fabian Schär had said himself to Swiss press, that he didn't think his season was over and that he would feature again. So maybe game week 38, maybe even the second game week 37 feature, but that's still a doubt. Right. Lascelles, Botman, Willock, Target, Miley all out for the season. Tonali banned as well. There was a question again on Dubravka and Pope.
Yeah.
And this is a dilemma some folk will have. They'll have Dubravka on the benches. And he said, I'll give you the quote. I think if both goalkeepers were fit, 100% fit, that's a very difficult call. But I think Nick is still building himself back to his very best levels and building his robustness through training. He said last week was very clear. Martin deserved to play, and Nick's still finding his rhythm. So all good so far under Dubravka. Sounds very much like he's keeping his place. And then Howe pulls the rug from under us, saying, now Nick's had a really good training week. It's been the Pope we've seen for the majority of his time at Newcastle, so he's certainly in a really good place. Right. Building his strength back up. So mixed messages from Howe, as you'd expect.
That's a Hail Mary if you've got Dubravka owner. He could easily play twice. Pope could get game week 38. Or we could just see immediately Dubravka drops, Pope in.
Yep.
Same with Trippier, could be in. I think I'm going for the safety down Burn myself. I'm not going to mess around with these. Could be high risk and high reward though, because we know that Pope can get good scores. So too Trippier. Okay, let's move on to another team that people are interested in. Got a double game week. Tottenham against Burnley. Their other double is against Man City, though. But yeah, we'll go with Spurs first. Obviously, lots of interest there. What's the latest there?
Not much to report. So no fresh concerns from last weekend, and 6 still out for the rest of the season. So that's Werner, Davies, Doggy, Forster, Solomon, and Sessegnon. The only line of note from this presser really was Oliver Skipp being trained at left back as an emergency, and he played there last weekend. Yeah,
it was a major achievement on the team selection video with Tom this week. I finally got him to say Oliver Skipp. He just said it, and but when Brummy says Oliver Skipp, it's got a prawn cocktail connotation.
Yeah.
Burnley, what's the latest there?
Yeah, this was one of the ones we had yesterday. So let me dredge that back up. Nothing new, I don't think.
Okay.
Steve was only ill last week. He's fine. He's recovered. Kolioshi wasn't ready to return. Mm-hmm. And then Ramsey, Alderkeel, Redmond, and Bayer are out for the season.
Rightio. Okay. Move on to West Ham against Luton. Not much interest in either of these teams, but they might get some returns. Bowen might get some return. All depends if Paqueta's fit. What's the latest from West Ham?
Yeah, Paqueta sounds like he's going to be all right. He's trained all week, Moy said. And they're still without Aguerd and who's the other one? Mavropanos. Mm-hmm. The two centre halves are still unavailable. And there's been reports that Calvin Phillips's season is over as well.
Okay.
But otherwise, not much to report in Moyes' farewell appearance at West Ham Stadium.
Okay. Luton, well, they've got to win it, basically.
To
avoid relegation. Yeah. So it could be could be relegation time for them, but it could be a day of celebration. For now. What's the latest for Luton as they try and stay in the top flight?
Yeah, they're going to get Ogbeni back. He's been on the grass for a couple of weeks, and now he's been past fit. I think that's it. I think it's still Kabore, Potts, Anderson, Bell, Brown, Nakamba, and Lockyer out.
Rightio. Okay, let's move on to Nottingham. Wolves against Crystal Palace. Once again, this there's a bit of interest in Crystal Palace and Wolves. Not bad for a bench option. Certainly good for Crystal Palace's case for game week 38 as well. We'll go with Wolves first. What's the latest from them?
Yeah, Pedro Neto, who O'Neill said technically was available last weekend. He passed him and Santiago Bueno and Bellegarde fit, and the other two were in the squad. He wasn't involved last weekend, and then he won't be involved this weekend either. He says he's still not sharp enough, and including him would be too much of a risk. So he's not going to feature. And of course, Dawson and Chiwomi are still out as well.
Yep.
I didn't see anything new on Mario Lemina, who came off last week, but I think O'Neill said at the time it was more precautionary with hamstring tightness. They will get Tommy Doyle back. He was ineligible to feature last weekend.
Okay, and as for Crystal Palace as well, in good form at the moment, particularly at home, but obviously this is away. What's the sort of latest as their season draws to a close?
You did say Palace there, Joe, didn't you? I was looking at the Luton team. Yes. Yeah. Lerma's back in training, but he won't be risked, it doesn't sound like. Mm-hmm. We're going to keep him back for game week 38. I think that's it, yeah. Johnson, Frank Takuri still out. Hadn't had any word on Rob Holden, who's missed the last 3, but it's fairly low-key, Palace.
Okay, let's move on to Nottingham Forest against Chelsea. Obviously, a lot of interest for Chelsea, but Nottingham Forest have got to win this to secure their safety. Or I don't know if they have to secure it to go some way to getting safe. I think I haven't actually looked at the points at the bottom, but I know they're right in the thick of it. Yeah, well, let's go with Nottingham Forest first. What sort of shape are they in as Chelsea visit?
This was one of the ones yesterday, and there was no questions on team news in Nuno's presser. It is just the broadcast section. I've not seen anything released from embargo yet. The only injury they had was Nico Williams, the only one that was reported anyway.
Okay.
And Nuno last week said it would be very hard for him to be fit for this one, so it sounds like he might miss out again.
Okay, and as for Chelsea, huge interest in them. Obviously, a lot of people already tripled up, but if you're not, you're looking to get a player in. What's the latest there? Who can they choose from?
Well, they could have, after welcoming him back, quite a number of players last week, including Gusto and Colwell, players like that. They could have Reece James back in the squad. He's a maybe for tomorrow. He's been back in full training all week, along with Ogochukwu. And Pochettino said this morning that he can maybe be available in the squad, but he's talking more in terms of 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, maybe half an hour.
Right.
So it's going to be bench at best at first, and maybe for the rest of the season, who knows. Other than that, Robert Sanchez still only listed in partial team training, so that's good news for Petrovic owners.
Yeah.
He's only partially training. Chuck Womaker and Chilwell are mentioned in the injury lists, even though Chuck Womaker has been seen on the grass. And Lavia, Fofana and Enzo, they're out for the season.
Yep.
That's pretty much it.
Okay, rightio. Let's move on to, this is probably the big news, especially for me and many others who own Bruno Fernandes. His shock omission from the side against Palace through injury, that's never happened in his career yet. So will Fernandes be back for this Arsenal game for Manchester United?
It sounds like it. So he's been back in training. I don't know for how long. Eric Ten Hag said he was back in training today. I don't know if that was his first day back or not. Him and McTominay.
Okay.
They're both back in training. And earlier in the week, we saw Rashford and Martinez back in training as well. Rashford, Fernandes and McTominay, they've obviously been short term. Lisandro Martinez has been longer term, and he's going to be held back. He's not ready for the Arsenal game.
Okay.
So good news if you're an Arsenal owner, because you're going to have probably, again, Johnny Evans and Casemiro at centre-half.
Great stuff.
They're also down Mason Mount, who just back from injury. He's been injured again. He's out of this one. They'll only keep him out for probably one game week. Luke Shaw's had a setback, so he's not going to feature either. Cambuala, Varane, Lindelof, I think probably look more towards the FA Cup final. Same with Maguire. Malacia is out as well. Anthony Martial has been back in parts of training over the last week, but I don't know if we'll see him again.
Okay, and potentially big news from the Arsenal camp today. A bit of a surprise addition to the questionable category.
Yeah, I don't know how much to read into this. You know what Arteta's like. So he started off by answering a few questions on team news, and he said, we've got a few doubts. Tomorrow we can resolve because we have another training session, so we'll have to wait and see. He was then asked specifically about Saka and Tomiyasu. So Tomiyasu wasn't seen in training on Thursday. Saka was pictured with heavy strapping, but that isn't the first time Saka's had heavy strapping this season and been kicked from pillar to post. And Arteta said those were two of the names that were doubts. So he agreed with the reporter who asked him the question if those two were the concerns, and he said yes.
Okay, yeah, we've seen this before with Saka though. He's got the sort of strapping on his leg.
Yeah,
we've seen that before, and then he plays and scores.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is still, even though there's a difference in league standing between these two, it's an important match for Manchester United, a very important match for Arsenal. I think there's probably a little bit of mind games. Bizarrely, you wouldn't think you would need to in Manchester United, but this is obviously a match they have to win. So
yeah, maybe. I mean, Tomiyasu not being in training, I think, is significant.
Yeah.
But Saka with strapping is not necessarily a tell, really.
Okay. Let's move on to the final fixture of the single game week part of the double game week. Obviously, we can't give team news for double game week because all of these teams are going to be featuring these matches. So the last one is Aston Villa against Liverpool. We'll go with the home side first. What's the latest there after their problems in Europe this week?
Yeah, last night got beat off Olympiacos, and that was when Unai Emery gave us the update that we have on their injured players. So he did get Emi Martinez back. He was back in between the sticks in Greece, but they still got doubts over Tielemans, Zaniolo, Rodgers and Moreno. The first three of those missed out in game week 36 or were injured during 36, whereas Moreno was a later injury, and all four of them missed out on Thursday night. Emery said that every day is going to be important because they've got small injuries. Some are having pain, and there's not a date when they'll come back. Zaniolo's close, Tielemans is close, going to Emery, and Alex Moreno has a small injury.
Okay.
So they don't sound too badly hurt. Nothing on Rodgers. Three still out: Ramsey, Mings, and Kamara long term. Buendia, remember him? He is back in training.
Wow.
But he has been out since I think August. So
all season,
so I'm not sure if we'll see him actually on the pitch.
Okay. Meanwhile, for Liverpool, any news there?
Yeah, Klopp wasn't asked about team news today. Not the only one who wasn't. I don't know if the reporters themselves are on the beach. I mean, there wasn't much left over in terms of flags. Doak, Thiago, and Matip, they're all red flag, not expected to return this season. Jota was the only one. So the previous estimate, I think, was 2 to 3 weeks, and that time is up now.
Okay.
So he shouldn't be far away. Okay. He wasn't in team training as of last Friday, which is when the last update on him was. So we'll keep our eyes peeled, see if we see anything on social media, but I don't think anyone's going there anyway.
No.
And the rest of it was quotes about Klopp's farewell and a few bits of praise for the likes of Kwanzaa, Elliott, and Gakpo, who are fringe players who have been starting in the last few weeks.
I think Jota, though, if he makes the bench and gets a few minutes, game week 38, if you're looking for a differential, Jota, we know when he gets minutes can do well, and he's playing his old club, Wolves. So
I'm saving a couple of transfers, I think, if I can, for 38, because there is the scope for a bit of final day puntery on someone like Jota.
Definitely.
On final Hail Mary.
Yeah, I think I'll be customarily boring and probably get Saka in for a nice Hail Mary that hopefully he can do it. Let's have a look at the roundup. There's not that many here because a lot of the teams are quite boring really for us. They're single game weekers and not much interest in it. So fit to play, Reece James and Bruno Fernandes is fit to play. I would be very surprised if he doesn't because if he's fit to play in training, then he will play. The problem with last time, he wasn't at training and he wasn't playing. So that's how he missed out in a rare miss for him against Palace. Tavernier and Ogbene are back, ready to play. Questionable in terms of a start, but certainly ready to play is Trippier. I've just put fitness there because we don't know whether he's going to start or not. But he should be. He's certainly fit to play. Saka, there's a slight injury doubt there. We've seen him strapping on his leg. Tomiyasu not been seen at training. Pedro, a surprise there for Brighton. Ankle problems could keep him out. Tarek Lamptey, meanwhile, should make the squad. So whether he starts or how many minutes he gets remains to be seen because of fitness issues. Major doubt, just we don't really know. Jota with his hip problem, but he could play, could get some minutes. We don't know yet, but watch out for him because in game week 38 he could be quite a player to have. Out, Holgate is ineligible. Sanchez at Chelsea is still only in partial training. Pedro Neto's still out. Mason Mount is now added to the injury list, the lengthy injuries at Manchester United, and Kirkes remains suspended for Bournemouth. I think that's most of the sort of key injury news there. Good luck with the game week, everyone. Good luck those watching and listening. Good luck those in the live chat. Thanks for joining us. Good luck you, Neale, with your Pickford pick and all the other lads on your bench boost. And I'm certainly going to be enjoying removing Harry Maguire for someone equally as boring.
Me too.
Yes. Yeah. Good luck to both of us. See you next week for the final team news of the season. Thanks a lot. Take care. See you soon.
Bye bye.